Have you ever wondered how a disease from the Middle Ages still exists today? Let's take a journey back in time, but not too far. Just to Oregon, in the United States, where health officials confirmed the first case of bubonic plague since 2005. It's hard to believe, isn't it? The disease, likely transmitted from a sick pet cat, was promptly treated with antibiotics. Those who had contact with the infected person and cat were also treated to prevent further spread. Bubonic plague, caused by the bacterium Yersinia pestis, can spread through flea bites, contact with infected animals, or inhalation of respiratory droplets. Its symptoms are fever, headache, and swollen lymph nodes, among others. If not addressed, it can evolve into more severe forms like septicemic and pneumonic plague. Despite its long history and the terror it once caused, the modern world's antibiotics have made bubonic plague treatable, with a low fatality rate globally. So this medieval disease is not as extinct as we may have thought. But how did this disease, known as the Black Death, come to be? Well, the story begins with a tiny yet deadly bacterium, Yersinia pestis. This microscopic organism is the culprit behind the bubonic plague. It finds its home in rodents, particularly rats, and is transmitted to humans through the bite of an infected flea. These fleas, once infected, become dangerous vectors of the disease. When they bite a human, they transfer the bacteria into the bloodstream, starting a chain of infection that can prove fatal if left untreated. The bacteria multiply within the body, leading to symptoms such as fever, headache, and swollen lymph nodes. Contact with infected animals can also spread the disease. For instance, handling a sick pet cat with the plague can pass the bacteria on to humans. In rare cases, inhalation of respiratory droplets from a person or animal with pneumonic plague can also lead to infection. Interestingly, the bacterium Yersinia pestis has been with us for thousands of years, with genetic studies showing it may have existed since the Bronze Age. However, it wasn't until the 14th century that it caused the infamous Black Death, killing millions and changing the course of history. It's a frightening thought that such a deadly disease can originate from something as small as a flea, isn't it? So what was the impact of this disease in the past? Well, let's wind back the clock to the 14th century, a time when the bubonic plague, also known as the Black Death, swept across Europe. The scale of this catastrophe is almost unimaginable in our modern world. Picture this: within a span of just a few years, this stealthy disease claimed the lives of millions. Some estimates suggest that between 30 and 60% of Europe's total population was wiped out. That's 1 in every 2 or 3 people. But the impact of the Black Death was not just measured in the staggering death toll. It left a lasting genetic imprint on the survivors and their descendants. In the wake of the plague, the human gene pool was dramatically altered, with certain traits offering a better chance of survival against the disease becoming more prevalent in the population. Socially, the plague brought about significant changes too. As populations dwindled, labor became scarce, leading to shifts in economic power. The feudal system, where peasants worked land owned by the nobility, began to crumble. Peasants could demand better conditions and wages, and some even rose to become landowners themselves. Economically, the plague was a double-edged sword. While it led to the collapse of certain industries and caused widespread economic disruption, it also paved the way for new economic models and opportunities. Trade routes changed, new businesses emerged, and the seeds of capitalism were sown in the ashes of the feudal system. The bubonic plague was not just a disease, it was a historical event that shaped the world as we know it. So how are we dealing with the bubonic plague today? In the modern era, the bubonic plague, the same disease that once wiped out millions in the 14th century, is now treatable thanks to the power of antibiotics. The fatality rate has plummeted globally, no longer the death sentence it once was. This is demonstrated in Oregon, United States, where the first case of bubonic plague since 2005 was successfully treated. The disease was likely transmitted from a sick pet cat. Thanks to swift medical intervention, both the infected person and the pet cat were treated with antibiotics, halting the disease in its tracks. It's important to note that while the bubonic plague can spread through flea bites, contact with infected animals, or inhalation of respiratory droplets, it is not expected to spread or cause deaths in Oregon or indeed in most parts of the world. Fortunately, with the advancements in modern medicine, we are more equipped than ever to tackle this medieval menace. The bubonic plague, once a harbinger of doom, is now a testament to the leaps and bounds we've made in the world of healthcare and disease control.